step I take, I move my truth. Every time they tell me stop, I use every comment, hate that makes my fuel. Gather up my energy and boom, I hear them talking, saying the way that I move is so reckless. That is a part of my mind I've been blessed with, giving my blood so I am relentless.
Well, here we are. It's the Keep Hammering Collective with Vincent Vargas. So what do you go by?
Anything really. Vince, Vinny, it doesn't matter. Everyone kind of falls into something, but Rocco or Vince is probably...
Where's Rocco from?
A buddy of mine, one of the guys in Black Rifle.
Yeah?
JT. He's the one who created that.
Oh, yeah.
Me, Matt, and JT. So me and Matt were in Ranger Town together.
Oh, okay.
And we were kind of the beginnings of Article 15 clothing before Black Rifle. We go out and do like meet and greets with Matt. Like a lot of people want to meet Matt. And one night I was kind of... the bouncer, people were like trying to get him to drink shots every time. I'm like, nope, stop, leave him alone, giving him space, kind of making sure everyone stayed together, everyone was safe. I kind of take that father role a lot. And so at the end of the night, he was like, damn, you were like a bouncer, like Rocco the bouncer. And then the next day they posted on social media, meet Rocco. And then boom, it just kind of took off.
There you go.
Coincidentally, my great-grandfather's name is Roque.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So my mom thought that's where the nickname came from. I was like, nah.
Unrelated, but hey, it works.
Right.
Well, it's great to have you here. I mean, I've been following along on your journey for a while. I like what you do. I've seen, I don't know, you're making an impact out there, and you just, with your new book out, Borderline, and plus this timing is crazy with what's going on at the border right now. So
yeah, it couldn't have been better timing. When I wrote it, I wrote like 5 chapters and I sent it to Jocko. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey man, what do you think? He goes, you got an agent? I was like, no. He goes, you got one now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so he connected me with his agent.
Right.
And we just went through the process, man. And so
he did the same thing for me, essentially.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't know how this whole book thing worked, right? And it's like, I don't know shit about anything. So they're like, well, you got to meet with these, there's 4 publishers in New York, and then they kind of make this pitch type thing. But then he had went through Macmillan before for his book. Yeah. So he's just like, and he wasn't just talking about any publisher in particular, but he just said, he goes, hey, he goes, just know that this is a business. And he's like, no matter who you go with, they're not he goes, I'm your friend. He goes, if you call me and say, hey, I need some help, bring like black plastic and some duct tape.
Right.
He goes, I'll be on a plane and no questions asked. I'll come there and help you. He goes, they won't.
Yeah, no.
they're not friends like that.
It's a business.
It's a business. So, But anyway, he, gave me some good advice, and I ended up going with Macmillan, who I know you went with too for your audiobook at least. And so he's a great resource.
No, he's great. And he's helped me a lot along the way. He's been kind of a part of my life, just kind of accidentally, obviously the veteran space and stuff, but he grew up with one of the co-creators of Mayans.
Oh, okay.
And so who is one of my mentors and good friends now is Elgin James, who eventually took over the whole show. And so one day Elgin comes up to me and goes, hey, they call each other brothers, right? Because they grew up since they were little together. He goes, hey, you might know my brother. And I was like, everyone does it. He's like, oh, your buddy's in the military, John? One of those. And I was like, fuck, here we go, Yeah. And he goes, his name's Jocko. I was like,
there's only one Jocko.
I was like, Jocko? He goes, yeah. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I know him, dude.
Yeah.
And so we were doing a premiere of we had a documentary called Not a War Story. And I said, hey, I would love to invite him. And he came. So that's where we first met. And we've kind of just had this cool relationship ever since. Mm-hmm. Turned out to him publishing my book under his, they call it an imprint, Jocko Publishing, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So it's the first one under that imprint, under the whole new publishing that he's doing. So pretty cool.
He's got a whole empire going.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. It was cool. I went down to his place and did a podcast, and I was like, this is all rad, dude. Origin.
I
For
know.
real. And they just signed with UFC too, and I was like, God dang, bro.
I know.
And then one of that big actor too. I don't know why.
Chris Pratt. I know. Have you met him?
No, dude. I would love to. I feel like that dude is like one of the realest dudes in Hollywood. He's
nicest guy.
You've met him.
Yeah. Nicest guy. I've been trying to. He was actually in in hunting camp that I was in. We didn't run into each other. I think I left and he came in and he ended up killing a bull. But yeah, I mean, Hunter, nicest guy. He's got a little farm, I think, up in Washington somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And he's a patriot, and just watching
Yes.
and on the acting side of my world, watching his growth as an actor has been freaking phenomenal. To just see him just kind of be that guy you just hire for comedy, and then all of a sudden just main character and just a badass all around.
Yeah, and he stands up for, he is a believer.
Yeah.
He
God and country. Right?
Yeah,
God, country,
he
family.
says it. He's not afraid to say it, like Hollywood is. Or I mean, you would know more than anyone. But I mean, so we just hit on a lot of different things. But I can't believe everything you're doing. How have from going how you grew up and your life? Did you ever envision you would be like an actor? Not only serving in the military. That's usually like. I mean, that's a pinnacle for a lot of people because that's a huge honor.
Right.
And our country relies on, men and women serving. But did you ever think this would happen, this whole journey?
I think my kids are all texting me. They're getting out of school right now, so I'm just going to turn that off.
No worries.
No, I don't think I could have ever imagined this. I thought I was going to be a baseball player, dude. I thought
Baseball?
I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player. And
Were you good?
I thought I was pretty damn good, bro. You know what I mean? I thought I was pretty good, Yeah, I was all right. I think I've
What
seen
position?
guys. Pitcher. Pitcher
Okay.
was probably where I stood out in the sense of being left-handed and throwing decently hard. But I can hit really well as well. And so when I got into college, that was the big fight where they wanted me to focus on left-handed pitching. I would love playing the outfield. I feel like I could read the ball really well and as well as I can hit. And so I was a pretty athletic dude. So I didn't want to take away the athleticism and put me only as a pitcher. And so I fought with a couple college coaches about that. And eventually I got a full ride to a Kentucky school, an NAIA school in Owensboro, Kentucky. And I lost my full ride from academics. And so I tried to play other places, never worked out, kind of watching the war on TV. And I was like, well, I have a daughter. Let's try and find a way to pay for some diapers and formula. And so I joined the military. But, I joined trying to do like fucking infantry. Like, if I'm going to do this, I want to see it. I want to be a part of that world, and I want to do special operations. I scored a 110 on my GT score, a 108. And so to do special forces, I had to get a 110, and they didn't have a 2-point waiver at the time. And so I had to do Ranger. And again, no fucking clue what Ranger was besides the movie Black Hawk Down. And I was like, fuck yeah. And I was like, I don't know if I have the balls to take the fight to the enemy like these dudes. But it was
an intense movie.
Dude, that's what I was like. But I would love to fucking see if I got it in me, you know? And so that's what I decided to try and do.
And when were you? You were a drill sergeant too, right?
Yeah. So after you do your active duty, I did my 4 years active duty with Ranger Battalion, and then kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. I kept my foot in the door doing reserves, and as a reservist, I joined as a drill sergeant. So I had to become a drill. I had to go to drill sergeant school, do all that thing, and so the reserve side of being a drill sergeant is slightly different. In active duty, they get DA selected. Essentially, you get forced to do that as your downtime. If you're super busy going overseas a lot, they kind of give you this, hey, you're forced to go be a drill sergeant. It's kind of your relaxing time. There ain't no relaxing as a fucking drill sergeant, bro. But that's
Did you like it?
It was the best. I tell people being an Army Ranger was the most exciting part of my career because, going to war and it's fucking dope, right? But rewarding being a drill sergeant is like being a father to a lot of kids and watching them grow and watching them be curious and giving them insight that they've never had. I've had kids who never knew how to shave because they didn't have a father. You know what I mean? And so I was teaching them how to shave. I was the father figure during that time. And I also was teaching them and knowing they were probably going to war within the next few months. This is in the middle of, I was a drill sergeant in 2010 to 2011 at Fort Sill. And so the war's still hopping and popping, and these kids are going. One of the guys in my first cycles, within 30 days of leaving and graduating, going overseas, he was killed in IED. So it was a very real job knowing that a lot of them will be going overseas. But two, man, these young kids, it's really incredible to see coming from these areas of the country you never heard of, who have no experiences with people, Like, I've never seen a black kid, so how do I act? Fucking normal, dog. You know what I mean? But like, they've never been able to talk to anyone that looked like me and to ask, how do I act around them? I'm like, man, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
There's still that. You know what I mean? I grew up in LA, every race, but people that don't have that. There's people who, one kid, man, it was a 4-hour break, right? They have a 4-hour leave to go eat somewhere. And he goes, drill son. I said, where y'all gonna eat? You know, and he's like, drill son. And he was a little soft in his britches, you know what I'm saying? He was like, drill son, I'm gonna get me a steak. And I was like, all right, Private, where you gonna get that steak at? You know, and there was a Texas Roadhouse there. There's a couple other spots. He goes, I'm gonna go to Steak and Shake. And I was like, Private, they don't have steaks there, dog. They have steak burgers, right? Yeah. He's like, well, why do they call it Steak and Shake? This kid, his whole life, has driven past a Steak and Shake and always wanted to, but couldn't afford it.
Could never go there. Wow.
And it just like broke my heart, dude.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of like innocence you see. These kids are serving. They're more poor middle class and just needed it, right? Just like I needed it at the time. I didn't have another option. I wasn't paying for college. My parents couldn't afford it. These kids are serving because they need the opportunity of what the military presents to them.
Yeah.
And that made it very beautiful, yet emotional, man. Like, God, these kids, they're only coming here to get dental and like just basic money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was cool. It was a really cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah. Cause it is, you know, they see it as like, where am I going to get a job? Like, oh, well, I could join the army, but then they're being sent overseas to war.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and all they wanted was that possibility of paying college. They never would have had the opportunity to. That's the truth of it, though. Like our poor middle class serve our military, you know?
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Because, you know, as a dad of somebody who served too, my son, it's like there's no, you don't know.
Yeah.
You're here wondering what's going on over there. It's,
My son, we've talked recently. He's a freshman,
okay,
right? And we're thinking about trying to get him into West Point, right? Because he wants to go to college. But I was like, well, let's get college paid for. Let's go to cadet program.
Yeah,
let's do it. We're going to become an officer. And I was like, you ever thought about West Point? He goes, I just saw a video. I think I want to try. I was like, oh shit, you know. And then I'm like, what kind of job would you want to do? Because I don't know. I was like, don't do infantry. And the dad of me is like trying to protect him from that world, you know.
Yeah.
But he's my son. I imagine he wants to try and do this similar to what I did. And so
that's
it's
normal.
A scary fucking thing, dude.
I know. Well,
how did it feel for you with your son?
Man, you're just so invested because, you know, when he's in RASP and going through things, I remember stories of the drill sergeants and the different ones. Some were harder than others.
Right.
You hope like you're doing the push-ups and like you got to get this many or whatever. And like this one guy counts, you know, pretty strict, this guy. So it's like you hear, it feels like you're there because then you're like waiting for the update, right?
Yeah.
How did it go? Yeah. And then, you know, the land nav, that was always, you know, you hear
fun.
stories. To me, it sounded like, God, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's stressful, but for us, it's stressful shit because you don't make one of those, you go home, right?
I know. To me, I heard all the stories and I'm like, God, that sounds like a pretty damn good time. But I'm old. I've done, you know, whatever. I don't have expectations weighing on me, right?
Yeah.
So I just have a lot of respect for, you know, the men and women who, well, for Rangers, it's men. I don't know if there's been any women. So, I mean, you know, women deserve respect and I'm not trying to take it away, but for those guys, it's usually like badass men.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. It's fucking hard.
Yeah.
And so I got nothing but respect. And so when my son became one and you too, it's like, man, I just really look up to people who serve that for our country and fill that role and go overseas and fight because that's what they signed up to do.
Yeah.
A lot of so much respect.
Yeah, thank you. I think I was too young to even know the gravity of it.
Yeah.
I was just like, fuck it, pay these bills, dog.
Oh, I know.
I think when I got there, I started to like, fuck, this is some real shit.
Mm-hmm. Did they ask you why you want to be a Ranger?
I don't know if they did, but the answer was like the reason why I was like, I want to surround myself with dudes who want to be the best as well. Mm-hmm. Kind of felt like I was safer in that sense of like surrounded by dudes who want to continue to push themselves to be the best.
Right.
That's how I felt the most secure. Like if I'm gonna do infantry, I want to do like with the best of the best.
Yeah.
And and if they ever asked me, that's probably the answer I would have given them.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you walk down the street, if you're with a couple other, like if you're with some badass guys, you feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's probably similar to that.
Yeah. And it was crazy to see how the regular army looked up to us. Like the first time going to the PX, you're someone know exactly. He puts on a tan beret, right? I mean, you stand out and you see the looks, and people be like, are you a Ranger?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like, you get goddamn right I am, kid. You know?
You need me on that wall.
Yeah, it feels good, man.
I bet. I can't imagine. I didn't serve, but through my son, I could imagine what that felt like. And yeah, pretty amazing. So you went from there and then drill sergeant, and then what'd you do?
It was a prison guard at the same time as a drill sergeant, because the reserve time was drill and then a prison guard. But immediately I applied for the Border Patrol, so I was going through the Border Patrol hiring process.
What prison was it?
I was at it's a private prison. It was called CCA. Corrections Corporation of America. And so first time I ever heard of a private prison. I just knew that.
I don't know what that is.
Really?
No.
This is going to blow your fucking mind.
Okay.
Because back then it wasn't as controversial as it is now. Private prisons, what happens is, so think of the state of California. At one point, all of their prisons were overfilled, right? They were max capacity. And so when it get to max capacity, you start having issues with food, with the dangers of that and everything else. And so what these private prisons showed up, they started to build a prison and charge the state cheap for housing their inmates. And so if it normally costs about $15 a day to have an inmate, I guess the cost of what it is to feed them, housing, everything, well, they were offering it for cheaper. So, hey, you can house them with us for $10 a day.
I see.
And so that's what they were doing. So these private prisons are all over the nation now, right?
Oh.
And so it becomes a weird thing when you make a business out of imprisoning people.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Are we just starting to put motherfuckers in here for business? Because that's a little shady.
They're making a little money.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that's the weird thing. And then for us as corrections officers who work for that, we're the liability, because as soon as we start, you put hands on a dude because he puts hands on you and you're trying to protect yourself. Well, as soon as he throws a complaint, well, we're the one who are potentially disrupting the money flow. And so it doesn't feel safe for us either. Like, we're against the machine.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a really weird space. And you're not hiring these dudes who go through the academy. You're hiring people who are just kind of like looking to do corrections. And so I was like a monster compared to like 80% of the people there. There was a few of us that were like in shape and wanting to do this job and hopefully getting to the next level of this, meaning finding a state or a federal job of it. So you have a retirement. The state doesn't have a retirement. You have just your 401k. I mean, excuse me, the private prison doesn't have that. So you have a small group of guys who are like in good shape. The rest, they're just trying to knock out another paycheck. And so
that's a tough situation.
Yeah, so there'll be fights, and they're like, Vargas. I'm like, fuck.
Here we go. God.
Yeah. We had to do a cell extraction one time, and they said, hey, grab the best team. And I'm only there 30 days, right? But they knew my background, right?
Yeah.
I'm like,
legit.
Yeah, good enough to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
And so they're like, hey, grab the best team you can. These two dudes are fucking drinking, and they're destroying one of their cell.
How are they drinking?
So in prison, they're able to change their diet, and they make it, right? So if you change your diet to, it could be a whatever diet. There's certain diets
like
that
fruit.
offer oranges and fruits, right? And so I think it was called a kosher diet at the time. And so they're saving their fruits, and they're able to ferment it and make it. So they make it, right?
Okay.
They make some prison hooch, man. That shit smells good, dude.
Hey.
It smells like some good
Being
bourbon.
creative.
Yeah. The ingenuity in prison is crazy,
Yeah,
bro.
I bet.
Yeah, and so they were drinking. They were celebrating something. One was in there for murder. One was in there for attempted murder. They're both natives at one of the local, in the surrounding Indian reservations. And I read up on the dude who committed murder, and I was like, damn, this dude is gruesome. Like, how he did it was pretty heavy. So I was already like, my sense of like stress was like, okay, we're in for a fight.
Yeah.
These dudes are in there forever. So
They got nothing to lose.
right, exactly. And now they're drinking. And so I got the best dudes I could, but at the time, there was only one dude I was really like, all right, I know this guy can fight. He's a big dude. He was an 82nd Airborne guy in the past, did some Iraq time. So I said, Laura, dude, you're my dude, bro. And I got whoever else was there. And it was like this guy named Stogner, who was like a 350-pound just dude. I was like, hold the shield, right? And so everyone had their job. We opened the food trap. And I was surprised, but they had a porcelain toilet. And so they broke some of the toilet. They threw it out the door, and it hit me in the leg. And I was like, what was that? And the captain was like, the toilet. They broke the toilet. I was like, oh shit. So we threw gas in there. It was an OCCS mix. We put it in there, and usually that kind of calms them down, but they threw it out the back window. So they busted the back window too.
Oh man.
So now we have no means of like, kind of slowing them down.
Right.
Everything we've tried.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And so my captain just looked at me and goes, well, they got nothing else. You ready? And I was like, oh fuck. When I looked in there, dude, they were wrapped in blankets like ninjas, like white ninjas, dude. Like for padding on the ribs,
for
their
protection,
elbows.
yeah.
They had sandals, chanclas, right? They had them cut for elbow pads and knee pads. They had their face covered. I mean,
wow.
When I looked in there, I was like, what the fuck am I doing, dude?
Oh, man.
Yeah, like, what am I doing? They opened up the door. The first two dudes went in. They both slipped because there was soap all over the floors. This was part of their trick, one of their tricks they do. And then it was me and the big dude, the dude who committed murder. And everything slowed down. I've told the story before. It's just crazy how it goes. But everything slowed down, and I see his arm doing kind of a wave. And I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? Mm-hmm. Like, what's his hand doing that? And then it kind of sped back up, and he's hitting me with the sock with some of the porcelain toilet.
Oh.
And that's when I was like, oh shit, this dude's trying to fuck me up. And I grabbed him. We started kind of like close-hand fist punching him in the face, and we both slipped and fell. And when we did that, he dislocated his shoulder, and I just kind of kept hitting him until they pulled me off him. And I was like, what the fuck? And then they're fighting with this other dude. So eventually we got control of the room.
Whoa.
30 days into this fucking job, that's paying me $21 an hour, right?
God.
No retirement. And I drove home thinking like, what the fuck am I doing?
They make that at McDonald's now. I mean, $21 an hour.
And it probably only pays 23 right now, right? And it's like, I couldn't believe, I was like, what am I doing? It took me the whole drive home thinking like, I feel like I'm going to quit. I want to quit. Like I wanted to, but like I have 3 kids at the house. I'm going to school full time just to make do of what I would used to make in the military. So I had to hold on to this motherfucker. And I was like, fuck this job, dude. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's pretty much how my prison experience went until I finally got on with the Border Patrol.
And that's, you say there's a bunch of private prisons. So that's going on everywhere.
That's, dude. So there's CCA, which in Arizona at the time had 6 different prison facilities, all had different contracts. I'm talking Alaska contract, a federal contract, a California contract. I mean, the list goes on. California contracts are the craziest because those are like California rules. So like that's what you have the big gang problems, right? I had to do cell extractions at the California one for a big riot they had. You know what I mean? And then I ended up going into the special operations of that and was called a SOAR team, special operations response team. And you get activated to go help with these riots all over this little area of Arizona.
Wow.
And then you have another company that was across the street called Geo, another private prison company. But these are all over the nation. You can Google them. They're all, it's
idea.
It's a different thing.
Wow. Last week I went to a prison for the first time. Went and talked to the inmates. I had never didn't know anything about it. And it was weird because, I mean, your experience is way different. You worked there, but it sounds weird to say, but the guys I met seemed like great guys. I mean, I was just like, and then I heard the stories about what they did and I was just like, holy shit. Well, but on a human level,
they're human, dude.
They were, and so I said this I did a podcast the other day, but it's like, they made a mistake. Some of them made many mistakes, but it could have just been one. And then they are. It's
a weird thing because there was, I didn't have the hand tattoos yet, but I still had the full sleeves. And guys would always ask me questions. Where are you from? And so I started gaining kind of a reputation. They called me Street Marine. They didn't understand military. They knew I was like, hey, come here, Street Marine. And so I'd get in issues with dudes and jack them up. They'd be like, Street Marine, that was him. He did it. Right? So it turned into a thing. But you start to kind of build some rapport with these guys. And I could have a good conversation with someone who was in there for kidnapping. There was a guy who was part of one of the Mexican mafias out there, and he was one of the guys who used to hold people ransom for them. And he's in there for a long time, dude. But we can have serious discussions. And he'd say, hey, bro, you know why no one fucks with you? I was like, why? Well, like, one, because I was ready to fight everybody. I just got back from Afghanistan, dog. I was like, so I was already pumped. But he said, you're the only one in my shift that would come with creased pants, nicely ironed clothes, and shiny boots. He goes, you take yourself serious. And it was crazy to me that he observed that.
Yeah.
That they saw that and they're like, that guy takes this job serious.
Wow.
And so for them, they knew like, all right, that's someone we probably won't fuck with unless we had to kind of thing.
Right.
But then I also learned that one dude in that whole pod controls the whole thing. So if some knucklehead was fucking with me, I could just go to the big dog and be like, tell the guy to quit fucking me before I fucking close this whole place down. He goes, you got it. Next time you come in there, that guy comes up and goes, hey, CEO, I want to say I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, no. And it's a really interesting place of respect. I saw a meme the other day. It was like a gang member that's in prison for life and a serial killer bumped into each other in prison, and they both said sorry. You know what I mean? Because there's so much manners in prison. It's an interesting thing.
That is, I mean, a whole different world, but it's still like that creed amongst men, I guess, is that'll probably always there's always going to be something to it.
Yeah, in that environment is no one fucks around. Like we need something like that in like day to day. Yeah. Because right now people can talk shit online and no repercussion. You know what I mean? Yeah. But in prison, everyone knows everyone in there's for something serious. So the repercussion of being rude is getting fucking killed. Right. So then it's like, well, just be a good person. And if you make a mistake, just own it. You know? Right. And that's cool. Everyone does that. Yeah. In real life, there's dudes. I want to smack dudes all the time. Yeah, I understand. That's interesting. I mean, there are lessons to learn in prison. Absolutely.
I mean, I think we can learn some lessons anywhere. Some people might think, what could you learn from a murderer, right? Yeah. Or a criminal? But you can. Yeah, and it sucks to see someone lose control of their life and make one mistake that probably keeps them in prison for the rest of their life. Yeah. You know, because some of those guys, then they have to defend themselves in prison their whole life, and they get stuck there. This one guy talked to this big black guy there. He's been in 31 years. Seemed like he had on a gold chain. He's like, seemed nice guy. Said he'd done 225 34 times. I was like, God dang, freaking beast. And he seemed, I don't know. I'm not sure what he did, and to me, he was good. I don't know. It's a whole different world. I enjoyed going in there, and if I could be a distraction or they could think about something else because I was telling bow hunting stories. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, man. It's. I don't look down upon anyone in prison like that. You know, there's certain people who've done things that are kind of unforgivable. Those are like
definitely,
okay,
definitely.
But then there's people that grew up in the same neighborhood I did and either got into drugs, you know, or got into gangs, and they fell in love with the community of that gang and did things for that gang because it was their family. You got to feel for that, man, because their own upbringing didn't have that for them, and so they went looking for it. Like, I don't know. I feel for. I have empathetic views on all that shit, right? The human experience is crazy, man. Yeah,
it's sometimes some people are a victim of circumstance or environment for sure. So when did you get all your tattoos? Was that before, or have you still been getting them? What do you got?
Yeah, I kind of keep going. You know, I think right now I'm pretty full besides some areas of my ribs, and I need to finish a stomach tattoo that I started from my boy Will XX. He's just really good. I just haven't had time to finish it. And then my legs I need to start finishing too. But I grew up, my father had tattoos my whole life. I've been going to tattoo conventions since I was like 10, 11. Really? And it's just kind of part of me and my dad's culture, but he brought me along. I'm kind of one of the kids that he brought me everywhere with him, and it was really cool. He was an LA City firefighter, and you know, he had to change a few of his tattoos so that for the LA Fire Department, but he just kept getting tattoos, and so he's got his full back, chest, legs, every sleeves. He's probably gonna get his hands done soon now that he's retired. And it for me growing up was kind of how we connected. So I'd come back from like Afghanistan, boom, I get another tattoo. Meaning we'd go to get tattoos together, come back from Iraq, get tattoos together, and it's kind of turned into a thing. Now we have several tattoos that are similar. The praying hands on my stomach, me and him both have it. The Lady of Guadalupe on my back is something that he has. I just have a different version of it. We both have Viva La Vargas on our biceps. Like, so, I don't know. Cool. I just respected my dad for so many years, and it became our thing. And so we've continued to kind of get tattoos. And, you know, I met my wife because she posted a tattoo, and I liked it. And I was like, oh. And so me and my wife go and get tattoos all the time, too.
That's awesome.
And so it became a thing.
So from your deployments, would you get a tattoo based on the deployment or?
No, you know, I'm sure your son seems to be very similar to me in the sense of like, there's the Ranger culture that was fun for war, but as soon as I was able to kind of step outside of that, I was back to being myself. I had my own identity, and, you know, I just saw the world slightly different. At the time, I was kind of questioning my faith and going through my trials and tribulations of that. And so I started getting kind of like demons on this side, and eventually it goes all the way up to salvation on my shoulder, and it all represented kind of like what I personally was going through and trying to figure that out. You know, and then it just kind of like keep filling space. And at one point, I got Jesus on my hand, and one of the sayings here is Psalms 18:32-45, and this was told to us before a mission by Jeff Strucker, a well-known chaplain, but also he was one of the gentlemen who was in Black Hawk Down. Oh. And so he became my chaplain, and we were going on a mission, and it was a mission that was supposed to be pretty hot and heavy. And so he said the prayer, which was an honor for us to have him there at the time. And when he said it, I was like, I've never heard words like that in the Bible. Where is that? So I asked him later, and so I got it tattooed on my hands, and it talks about, giving the strength to bend bows of brass and giving your hands strength for war. And so it was this really cool version of the Bible that I never heard, that in that moment kind of stuck with me. And so I continue to get tattoos that mean something, and then some that don't, man. I got some dumb ones, dude. I think I got the Rock on the side of my leg that's not very nice looking. I got Danny Trejo on my leg. I got Taco Life. You know what I mean? My mom hated that one. Eventually, you just start liking the way your skin looks with the color on it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I don't think tattoos need to make sense to anybody else but the person getting them, right?
Absolutely.
And as long as you got a story there, or maybe no story, maybe it's just for fun, and that's okay too. I mean, you're living with it. Ketone IQ is my podcasting superfood. I'm no Andrew Huberman, so talking for hours actually takes a lot out of my brain power, which I feel like Ketone IQ actually helps with. Ketone IQ is a clean energy boost without caffeine or sugar. It increases your blood ketone. I'm not on a keto diet, but by taking Ketone IQ, I can achieve the desired focus and energy for explosive workouts that ketones typically provide those in ketosis. You can find Ketone IQ at your local Sprouts or online at hvmn.com and use code CAM, C-A-M, for 20% off your first order. Mud water is something I've been using daily since I started the podcast. It's supposed to be an alternative to coffee, but I actually add it to mine for some extra health benefits. It's got 4 functional mushrooms and with only a little caffeine, and each ingredient was added for a purpose. Cacao and chai for a hint of caffeine and hot chocolate-like flavor. Lion's mane for focus. Cordyceps to promote natural energy. It's also Whole30 approved, 100% USDA certified organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, and kosher. Mudwater donates monthly to support psychedelic research and has since day one. They believe the country is in a mental health epidemic and that psychedelic-assisted therapy is one of the most effective tools we have to treat mental health conditions. Today, you get $20 off when you subscribe at mudwater.com/cam. You also get a free frother and a sample of their delicious coconut creamer. So go to mudwater.com/cam to get $20 off your subscription and your free frother. That's mudwater.com/cam. What did you learn from your deployments? What do you learn? What do you take or bring back from those experiences?
It's two sides. I learned a lot about myself and like what we're able to accomplish in that team effort of like the Ranger Battalion. It was cool to train, but it was really cool to see it come into action, like come together in real life. Mm-hmm. Building the camaraderie and the closeness you get with people when you go to war together is different. Like I thought I was close to my baseball friends. Like no, the war friends are different. Mm-hmm. And I've since tried to find a lot of myself and in that kind of lost connection to some of my buddies because I think we're all on different paths of growing or trying to accepting, or at least I am. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of things in war that I also kind of come to terms with of, I guess, the other side. I started to see how the other side of the people and how they experience war, mm-hmm. the families, the innocent people and just the countries that kind of see the aftermath of what we leave behind. And it kind of just changed perspective a little bit. Not that I wouldn't do it again. Yeah. But I think, I guess I wasn't prepared to see that. Mm-hmm. I think that's the side of it. And it's kind of what makes the border conversation, it makes me more empathetic towards that too. Yeah. It kind of leads me into, we have to see, and not saying like, look, I'd go to war and kick in doors and do the same thing because I know the connection to some of the people that we've we've killed or captured overseas had connections to terrorist acts in America. So which makes it justifiable and makes you feel like, fuck yeah, I'm doing something good. But to also see the screaming faces of the family members and watch their husband get killed is something that sticks with me.
Yeah, I
And so
imagine.
I think not everyone feels that. I did. And I kind of hid that for many years.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of accepting of it.
Yeah, that's intense. So what parallels do you see from that to the border?
I think a lot of people see the border situation as one conversation, and I think it's actually two conversations that have to happen at once. And if both sides of this conversation actually communicated better, they would both see that the answer is more in the middle, and there's kind of a middle ground to it. You know, this conversation with the border, it's two things happening at once. You have immigration law, and you have Homeland Security. The protection of our nation that happened after the 9/11 incident.
Right.
We had to introduce Homeland Security measures to protect our nation from outside, you're right, outliers who want to do harm upon us.
Right.
And then you have immigration law, something that we've had, immigration for the existence of this great nation. And immigration is a part of this country. But now we have to answer both of those without losing too much of one or the other. If we do too much Homeland Security, well, then we become similar to like a North Korea, and then we don't allow immigration. And that becomes, we lose the dignity of what this nation kind of stands for. If we do too much immigration and not have Homeland Security, well, now we open the door to potential threats. And we've risked the people who live here and who have always gained sanctuary of this nation. And so that conversation is right in the middle there. And what most people probably don't know is, I think it was last year, the number is 1.5 million people were allowed to immigrate to America legally, the legal process. That sounds like a really good number, and that's cool. But how long did it take for them to get that? Could have been 12 years, could have been 7 years. And so that process, like when you say one answer, what's the deeper to that? We're not having those discussions. And when we don't have those discussions, we're not doing our due diligence and really understanding this whole immigration system and situation.
Yeah, because you mentioned the 1.5 and it may have taken 12 years. Well, who knows what the truth is with the news, but they say that 10 million have come over and...
Yeah, I mean that's an estimated number, but it's not far off. So you have what they call as gotaways, and so the only way it's not a definite science in how to mark a gotaway. You know the ranches down at Eagle Pass.
Yeah.
If I'm tracking someone from the river and I say, hey, I got it. So what happens is, again, that's not a perfect science either. Is like I say, I got footprints of about 10. Someone who's hunted before, you know what that looks like. And you're like, okay, I got about 10. Why do I say 10? Well, this footprint looks different, this placement here, and also different soles. So I'm going to give around 10. So if I call 10 here and we continue to track this all the way up to the Paloma and we see it get to a road and it doesn't go over, that's a gotaway. And that's marked as 10 gotaways. I don't know. It could have been 9. It could have been 15.
Right. Around there somewhere.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so the number we give the best estimate, and so that is what gets marked as a gotaway. And those are the ones we mark as gotaways. And so there's times where guys have hit the river, boom, right into a vehicle and gone.
Yeah.
So it just depends the traffic. The issue down in Shelby Park right now is like that's fast traffic. That could be out of the boat ramp, boom, right into a vehicle within seconds. And so we can't determine all of it. But yeah, the number currently right now people are throwing is around the 10 mil, and I don't think it's far off.
And they say that it's like war age fighting men that's what the news says too.
Yeah.
So are these coming from Central America?
Yeah, I don't use that term because I think it's thrown around too lightly. If you think of it in the sense, like I'm not saying it's not, but I'm also saying who are the guys who usually work for the families is the working age males.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like
Could be, but maybe
maybe it's just working. I don't know. I don't discount that that's the age who goes to war.
Yeah.
But I also don't discount that's also the age that usually works hard and sends the money back to family. So
Right.
I think when you use that term, it is a form of fear mongering.
Yeah.
And it's leading towards one viewpoint. And so I don't use that. I'm just saying, yeah, there's a lot of males coming.
Right.
The one thing that makes me more nervous is the exotic, and we call them exotics in the sense of like people coming from Mexico is not uncommon, just by the location. It's right on the border.
Yeah.
People coming from South America, not uncommon.
Right.
They're coming up north. people coming from Africa, people coming from China, people coming from Russia, right? Those countries, Middle East, damn, that's a long trip.
Yeah.
And who's paying for that trip?
Right.
So that becomes a concern of like, those are countries that we know we have enemies, right? People who don't want to see good upon our great nation. We know that if they're able to make that trip, someone's financially backing it, even if it's them. Like, how do they get that
For a
money?
reason.
Right. And so there's a lot that starts to pose the question of like the special operations tactical side of me goes, that makes me a little uncomfortable. And so immigration as a whole, we might have a massive influx right now because they know right now they're getting in. And so that's just causing more. So it's a really good word of mouth system they have. And the trafficking organizations are really good at capitalizing on our little snafus, our little kind of like immigration loopholes.
Right.
As soon as they find out that, cool, this is the area, boom. Because every state sometimes has different policies, whatever those policies are. Like you start to see it as a body, as a person comes in, as a migrant comes in and maybe gets arrested and they go back home, say 3 days later, 4 days, whatever it is. It depends. Like the old system when I used to work, they get housed for 30 days and get to return back to their country. So they go back and tell them that. And so then they go, okay, cool. So in this area right now, they're being held for 30 days. That area is 1, this area is 30, let's start putting them that way. So that becomes like the business model for the trafficking organizations. So they learn how to fluctuate their movement. Also, there's multiple different trafficking organizations working the border. So some in different San Diego to Tucson to Texas, all different organizations, all trying to do the same thing. How do they facilitate more movement and make more money? So
they get paid for getting people into the United States, basically?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a business.
Yeah.
And this business is so deep rooted. I don't know, and I can't say I can speak on it like as an expert testimony, but all the way down south, there's massive buses that very brand new charter buses that are assisting in the efforts of this. And so it's a lucrative business.
Yeah. And so the people that want to come in, they pay thousands or who knows how much, and then they get delivered to the border. Here you go. Here's your ride once you get over.
Yeah, and it's not an exact science as well, and it's also not a guarantee. You know, there's things where like if the organization needs to pass drugs at the same time, they'll create the diversion of 30 bodies here, drugs here, and so they get paid for the attempts. Not necessarily the success.
Right.
And as well as if you have a coyote, which is the kind of the trafficker on boots on ground trafficker, if the coyote gets them across into America and maybe gets them to a safe house, they could extort them for even more money at that point.
I see.
And the business is it's a strange and unfortunate business. And so like, why would people do that? Well, it's because they heard it takes 12 years. It takes 7 years.
Right.
And so when they hear that, and then they have kind of a PSYOP campaign happening on the other side, saying, go with us. We'll get you in there faster.
In a week.
Yeah. And, uneducated on the legal system. Also, the legal system is very challenging. So all the things are working against them to do it the legal way. It's all working for them to do it the illegal way.
How much is politics at play? Because the last election cycle, it was kids in cages, right? And so Trump was keeping kids in cages or separating kids from families. Now it's like everybody's coming across whenever they want, tens of millions of people. What's the truth?
There's a lot of people coming across right now, but they're all still put through a system. And what happens after the Border Patrol apprehends them is whatever policy is in place. And so if you go to Obama is known for the president that was the most strict on immigration, on illegal immigration. And so at the time during Obama, that was my time of being an agent. In some places, they were being arrested for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It just depends on how many times they've attempted to come across illegally. What determines someone coming across illegally? That means they're coming across outside of a port of entry. You know the port of entries if you're going to Mexico?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are ports of entries. If you want to come in, you should use that. And even if it's just like, hey, I'm just going to go grab food, there's a process to get authorization to do that. If you come into America anywhere outside of that port of entry, you have now broken the law. That's called Title 8. It's USC 1325 is entering the country illegally outside of a port of entry the first time. So anyone who did that during the Obama era was going to jail for 30, 60, 90 days. And so what happens is the Border Patrol agent apprehends them. We apprehend, that means that we've apprehended them, but we're also making sure we're safeguarding human life. A big part of the Border Patrol mission is to save lives if needed. We wear a lot of hats. We save lives, we do crisis response, we do medical interventions, and then we bring them in to process them. When it gets to the Border Patrol agent and he takes them into the processing center, what happens there, it's not our duty to determine whether their claim of asylum is legit. It's not in my capabilities. I just say, oh, you're claiming asylum? Okay. Well, then here's the asylum paperwork. Boom.
Can they say that from Mexico, or is that only from
certain countries can say asylum?
Okay.
Only certain ones on a certain list, and that rotates. That list changes, so on and so forth, as the political kind of climate changes.
Right.
Mexico, no. But if there's, I don't know if there is now, right? Because I don't do that now, so I don't even know. But there's different things that Mexico can ask for.
Okay.
Right. And so it's very different. But in our time, what we would do is, okay, cool, process. And we're talking about 2009, 2015 timeframe. We would process them, hand them off to ICE, ERO, and then they decide housing until they can see an immigration judge. And the immigration judge makes the determination of their case.
And they're locked up till then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In private prisons.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Full circle with this motherfucker for me. I was
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Because at the time, that was the only way you can house them. We don't have, the system doesn't have anything for illegal immigration housing. There's nothing set up for that. And so the only other place is put them in prison. And so now you get to the Trump thing where they say kids in cages. Well, imagine if you have the system that doesn't have a place to put anyone. All we can do is put them in prison. What do you do when you overrun that system? Well, the system was so overrun, they didn't have a capability to house families. They had to start building these tents. They had to start opening schools. They had to start creating things for it because there was no system in place for that. And like I said, Obama administration was more strict, but so was Trump. Trump was pretty strict on it. Trump was more vocal about that, and I think that's what caused a lot of the news stuff.
Because I didn't know Obama was
he was the man on that. He was the dog on it. Yeah,
it was like, because you'd think that, Democrat, they're liberal, that everybody's in, like, or asylum, we're a nation that will accept anybody.
Right.
It's kind of the narrative.
Yeah, but they were very good about, like, if you're seeking asylum, we're going to take care of that, right? But the thing is, if you're coming in illegally, it was a Homeland Security issue.
Okay.
So he was serious about it, and you could watch the speech. And I'm not like I try and take a position of, I'm not left or right on any of this right now.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, let me give you the information, because there's not enough people that are actually trying to explain this in a way that's not a fight.
Right.
And the only way we get further down this path is having good discourse. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
And so when the whole Trump and cages, it became a political stunt to make Trump look bad. But the truth of the matter, it's the system that was in place even before Trump. We have to separate them from their parents to identify whether they're being trafficked or not. Okay, once we determine they're being trafficked or not, well, the father of the household is still probably going to say jail time because it's illegal to cross. And if the policy is in place, you do 30 days, well, he's going to do 30 days. You don't do 30 days with your kids in jail. And so they had to create a system. All the lost kids was confusing. And I know the system, everyone put a lot of that on Border Patrol. But what happens is, after we process, the Border Patrol doesn't have their hands on it no more. It hands off to ICE, and ICE does the determination of their case, waiting for an immigration judge and housing or deportation. So a lot of the media was using all these things and saying Border Patrol, border control, all these things. And that's why I was like, what? You guys you know what you're talking about here. There's a multi-layered system here that happens, and the Border Patrol is one part of this big system. And I'm not shitting on ERO or the ICE. I'm saying, well, that was their job, and that was what they had in place, and there was no system in place to make it any better. And so we have to fix that, right?
And is that where we are now? It still needs to be fixed.
Yeah,
because now it's in the news every day.
Correct.
Your book, is even more meaningful. Borderline. And it's like, to me, I'm empathetic to the guys working on the border.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, it feels like a no-win situation. You got people saying that you're letting too many in. You're like,
right.
We're worried about the Ukraine border, not our own southern border. It's like, man, that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah. So the way I kind of, what I always try and correct people. They're like, oh, the Border Patrol was letting them in. No, the Border Patrol is doing their job. They're actually apprehending them, processing them. Whatever policy in place after that, it's not our job. We hand off to ICE and they do whatever they have to do with it. If they're letting them go in 4 days with a notice to appear, well, that's the policy that they have to follow. We still did our job. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In the past, we give them to ICE and they detain them. Now we're giving them to ICE and some people are getting notice to appears, right? That means see you at a later date and immigration will determine, because we're so overwhelmed that there's no one to house you.
Yeah. Well, aren't they sending them? Well, New York now is saying we don't want any more. And I don't know if this is true or not, but like kicking veterans out of care facilities and putting immigrants in there. Is that true?
So there's a truth to it. Yeah, there's some truth to those. It's just when it happens one time, it turns into it's happening all over, and I want to make sure I don't do that. There was people getting kicked out of a school, right? There is kids getting displaced from school so they can house them there. So in those kids, yes, that is one school that did it in the state of New York, who was very, they're very sanctuary state oriented, so they do things like that. You don't see that in Texas, right? You don't see that in certain states. So really depending on what kind of political kind of balance the state has and what their views on it, is kind of, you'll start to see things like that. There was some people getting kicked out of a hotel, veterans to house, yes, New York, right? And so certain states will do certain things to accommodate the immigration situation. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the state, right? And every state makes their own choice. And the same thing is what's happening right now with Texas, right? And so it's this really interesting thing that every state is kind of making a stance on how they see it and how they'll further pursue it.
Yeah.
And that's what's been interesting to watch, right? Because when say, hey, we'll welcome them, and then 2 months later, like, we can't no more. It's like,
yeah,
it really depletes resources. We're in a position where, like, a country that wants to welcome immigration is at a point right now where we are tapped out, and we're starting to have to see, how do you fix this? It's a hard thing.
Yeah.
So, and like, I sit from the position of like, well, let me at least tell the Border Patrol story so that question is answered, because that one seems to be get shit on all the time, and I don't like it.
Yeah. It sounds like to me the Border Patrol guys are just doing their job.
Right.
What happens after that that's the administration, or that's so what's happening now, because Texas and Abbott say we're stopping people coming over, and now DeSantis is sending National Guard troops from Florida to help. Is that how do you see that?
So personally, from like, if I was giving expert testimony on this, the state of Texas is doing what Texas believes is right, but it will lose this fight in the Supreme Court a lot of the time because the state can't uphold federal law. And so when Arizona tried to do something like this, they said Arizona, the sheriffs can deport veterans or whatever, or deport immigrants. They fought it, and eventually the Supreme Court sided with the side of the federal government. And so this is a really interesting time. The position I see is this: the Border Patrol is going to continue to do the Border Patrol job, whatever is asked of them to do by federal law. And the state can do exactly what they want to do because it's their state as well. And the National Guard can do exactly what they're told because the state has asked them to do their mission. And all of those three, it's essentially what it is. You have the National Guard, you have the DPS, and you have the federal government of the Border Patrol. All of them are going to continue to do their job. And there's no tension between them, boots on ground.
Right.
The media wants to make that happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like. I think it's unfair because you start to cultivate the idea that this is going to be some civil war. This war happening on the ground, it's not really happening. Everyone wants to see the best for this nation. We all abide by a certain code or a certain law or a certain leader who's who's giving you the commands, right? The federal Border Patrol continues to do the Border Patrol job.
Yeah.
And so boots on ground, everyone's just trying to do their job.
Right.
When it comes higher up, it's kind of a posturing position. The media's taking him saying, like, oh, now Governor Abbott's doing it. And like, look, Governor Abbott's doing exactly what he believes he should do to protect the state. He's allowed to. And he's gonna have his day in court fighting with it. And that's what's gonna happen. This is the way this happens. The only bad part is your average citizen starts to feel compelled to go support. And that becomes scary when you have, a lot of these gung-ho due to believe in America, which rightfully so. And they're
loading up their trucks with guns and like, let's go.
Right. My fear is they're going to go down there and they don't understand the posturing that's happening down there, and that it's not an aggressive posture still. Even with barbed wire, it's not the aggressive posture that the world wants to think it is. They're still just, so barbed wire and all that is deterrence. That's what it is. It's like, we're going to deter you from coming because you don't want to get stuck in that. And that's the posturing that's happening. And it's a good posturing. I get it. Yeah. But it can be dangerous as well. And that's why the Border Patrol kind of took the position like, well, we're not going to cut it unless we have to do our job. And their job is safeguarding human life. And I just don't like how the media is kind of turning it into this fight down on the Shelby Park. No, if you go down there and talk to all of them, everyone's like, hey man, you good? Like everyone's good moral. They're like a morale. They have good morale. They're all just waiting for the orders from the top. Yeah. And so if the nation would see, there's Texas is putting its foot down, and they're allowed to. It's going to see its way in court again, Supreme Court, and the decision will be made. And in the end, I believe the federal government will win because, like I said, the state can't uphold federal law. Yeah,
that's how our system's set up.
That's how the system's set up. Yeah. And so, in the end, if for the next 10 years, Texas decides they want to activate their National Guard to the border and create a defensive posture of deterrence, he can do that, right? And that's going to be fine. And the Border Patrol is going to work with them and figure out how to do their job. Genuinely, the Border Patrol is the one agency that saves more lives on the border than any other agency because we work on the border where people drown, where people get the heat conditions and all that. So the Border Patrol is going to continue to save as many lives as possible and do their job. And that's just that. Here's the crazy part. When a Border Patrol apprehends you and they run your fingerprints, they put you through several systems that will identify whether you have criminal history or connection with any kind of terrorist organization, right? Terrorist watch list or whatnot. And if they determine those people are, well, then they deport them. They deport them immediately. You might not see it, right? Yeah. But they deport them immediately. The DPS, I don't know necessarily they have the same system. And so there's a concern. Are they running them for the same systems we have? Right. Well, they don't have the same system. And then once they're done doing their, I think it's 15 to 30 days is what they're holding them for when the DPS gets them. Then what? Well, they give them back to the Border Patrol. So it's a posturing position. Yeah. And I get the sentiment of it. If you create deterrence, then maybe they'll go somewhere else. Right. And Texas is cool with that. Yeah. But while all the attention is on Shelby Park, the highest numbers of illegal immigration are happening in fucking Tucson. Really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't see that at all in the media. No one does. No one does. But if you can look on it, so if you guys are listening to this now, the Border Patrol sectors all have social media, and they're doing their best to use the social media to give you the information that they have. So every week you'll probably see any kind of significant busts, any kind of significant, people that came across that we caught them on, have prior history, and as well as the numbers. Transparent. They're showing it. Not enough people are seeing it. And not enough people in the media are using that to their advantage. No, they're just ignoring that and saying, well, this has all the attention. Let's attack this. Yeah. I mean, I even saw a little, from the press secretary today saying there's immigration laws or something. Republicans haven't done anything. So it's... That's no comment. No, it's a shell game of responsibility, it feels like. So what do you think? There's another theory out there that, they're trying to pad Democratic voters. Yeah, I hear that a lot. But how do you see that? Adding tens of million, potentially, who knows if they even will vote? I mean, half Americans don't even vote, or regular, longtime citizens. Just like from a position of someone who's seen a lot of shit overseas and who's seen some bad shit in America, what concerns me is the people who come in that don't want good upon the country. So that's my biggest concern. My biggest concern is Homeland Security, the side of the Homeland Security that we're kind of leaned too far immigration, where we don't have our Homeland Security goggles on as much. Right. So that probably scares me. All the other people coming in, I don't like in the sense of like we're a sovereign nation, right? We have laws. And if these laws aren't being effective and it's kind of a bypass of the laws, it's a concern because, you know, I think Andy Facilla said something to me I think it was the first time I ever thought of it. It was like, you start to kind of dilute the waters of what America's cultural foundation is in the sense of like the patriotism of America. And then you start to lose that if you kind of dilute the water, if you will.
Right.
And it was the first time I ever thought like, oh man, that might be a concern to me because my grandkids might not have the same beliefs of what America stands for. It's like those people who have taken the American flag and turned it into a weapon of like racism. It's like, no, don't do that. Right? Don't do that because that flag actually represents you too. It represents all of that, all the struggle, all the oppression. All of that is what that flag should still remain. And when someone uses it and kind of almost defaces it digitally, right, in a sense where they call it racism, well, then it loses the culture and the foundation of what me and your son have fought for and the people before us. And so when people are coming in America and the way it is now, it's kind of a crazy situation where I don't know how to voice my feelings more than I'm more concerned about the Homeland Security position of our country and in the next few years what that's going to look like. I'm more concerned about that and then the votes. The vote thing is like, I hear you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if I just robbed a bank, you're not going to see me come out and show my face, right? So if someone come here illegally, I just don't know how many of them are willing to show up and vote.
Right.
I don't know how many of them are going to be showing loyalties to the president because I don't think they really think that deep into it. They're more like, man, I got smuggled in, I'm laying low. Yeah. So I think more realistically on the fact that a lot of people are using that as well. Like they're using fighting age males. Same way they're using the votes. I think it's more than that. I think this is something that we have to pay attention to in the next few years. And kind of like Mike Glover and all those other guys, like I always kind of stay at a position of readiness. And now I'm kind of even more like, okay, we really got to just pay attention to it and see what that looks like. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to word as well as not get myself in trouble.
I understand. It's like a lot of it is the posturing and the political games. You know, I mean, I agree with what you're saying about if you come in here legally, you're not going to be showing up. Okay, I'm on a vote now. Yeah, I get that. It's just I just don't like how the media just twists everything and it pits us versus them.
That's what the problem. Yeah. Right. That's why I said the two arguments are happening simultaneously and maybe both are kind of right. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the media doesn't give us that. The media says, you know, conservatives this and the liberals this, and then they go Trump and Biden, and I know, and it's creating such division in this nation that it makes me feel compelled to be like, well, it's really in the middle there, guys, and we should try and see it in a more human aspect. Right. I don't like people breaking the law to come into this country either. At the same time, I also don't like that it takes 12 years for a good person who really wanting to come to this country and work their ass off.
I get that.
So there's something that has to be said about that too, right? There's multiple layers of this immigration system that we need to look at. You know that I think that right now is like 630 something deported combat veterans. Veterans who come to America, they come serve our country, and they're promised that they're going to become citizens. But then right before they get their citizen paper done, they have a alcohol issue, a DUI, and they get deported. Or there are many different little things. I'm just saying generally. And because the way the system is built, and they didn't think about maybe they have post-traumatic stress from combat. Maybe they're struggling with something. No, they have a DUI and boom, they send them right back to a country they don't even know. Yeah. So there's a lot of little issues in this immigration thing that needs to kind of be addressed. And I think for many years, our political positioning has just been like scrape the top of it off, put a new face to it, things are good. And I think right now is probably the most important time. Like, no, we really need to see the bigger picture of immigration. And we really got to kind of start addressing these little things that we've been ignoring for way too long.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about it here, and it doesn't seem like it's that crazy of problems to solve, right? To me,
well,
it seems like
it'll never stop if we don't control the system, right, down south.
Well, yeah, but it seems like the challenges you've mentioned and the maybe the disconnect. Man, if we can talk about it here and kind of identify those, why couldn't somebody solve them?
I agree. I think it seems because we have this political fight always going on. The past, 10 years have been more like politically dividing people. Yeah. It's
not working together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you have the parties not working together either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like at one point there was a bipartisan group trying to make it happen. It was like 6 Democrats, 6 Republicans really trying to work on common sense immigration, and it never came, it never happened, never panned out. And so why? Like, why aren't we really trying to find the answer to that? It's a tough thing. It's weird that this is it's one of the biggest issues we're going to face in our voting in the coming presidency, and how you're going to vote is really going to determine what the future looks like in that. And that's crazy. It's like scary that we're looking for sides only for the fact that we need them to go to the immigration side that we want. And when both parties should be really looking at Homeland Security and immigration.
Same issue. So who you voting for? Just kidding. You don't have to tell me.
It's a canceled.
I know. You can't even say the right answer.
Yeah, any answer I say, I'm done.
No, you're crucified no matter which way.
I'm going to do a write-in ballot, and it's going to be for myself.
I know. Isn't it? Oh, it's just a crazy time.
It is, man.
So you just kind of mentioned just in passing, just with the DUI and the veterans, it's just like, I heard you on a clip talk about drinking.
Yeah.
And tell me about that, because I know that veterans, that's a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge for everybody.
Yeah.
But specifically for people coming back from serving and.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing in the military. I mean, I'm sure your son, was he 21 when he joined, or younger?
He was older. He was a deputy here at the jail for a while. He worked at Cabela's for a while, and then I think he went in and he's about 25, right? 24.
Yeah, I was 23, 24, so that's just about the same. So like, the interesting thing about the culture of the military is that we created a drinking culture. And it's not just the military. Like I said, college baseball, it was a drinking culture. Growing up Latino, it's a drinking culture. If I didn't drink with my dad at a young age, you know what I'm saying? Like, was I even Mexican, dog? You know?
I hear you.
So it's a really interesting thing that like we conform to the culture because it's what we do. It's what everyone has done. And then adding combat to that, it really made it coming back from combat like, fuck it, why don't I drink? Because next 6 months I'm training and I go right back overseas, so I might get killed anyway, so fucking enjoy it. And that turned into not really, it wasn't an era of wellness. It wasn't an era of counseling and trying to betterment of ourselves. It wasn't about that. It was about being really good at our job. And that means drinking, fucking fighting.
Yeah.
Army Ranger.
Going hard all the time.
Right. And so you start to believe that, and it becomes a part of you. And if that's not you, then you're not really the Ranger, are you? And that didn't leave me for a while. I got out of the military and continued to drink because it's what I did. And you start to really fall into that system. And it was no different than, but also I go to kid parties as a Hispanic man. I have a cooler in the back of my car drinking too. And so a lot of my world was just revolved around this drinking and drinking and drinking until I realized that like, fuck, man, this thing's got a hold of me, dude. Like there was no out for me. It was, I found an excuse to drink for the death of my buddy this day and the anniversary of this day and another death of this day. And I found myself on the anniversary. I lost 2 guys overseas while I was I graduated Ranger School, got injured. I couldn't go deploy with them. So I was in the rear, in the rear D, they called it. And they were killed in combat about probably a week to 2 weeks before they redeployed. And one of those guys was someone who was a mentor of mine. They were both mentors of mine, but one of them I really looked up to, another big Hispanic guy. And you don't see a guy like big Hispanic in a leadership role too often in my world. And I thought like, fuck, this guy is the man. And so when he died, it was like, fuck me up. So every anniversary date of his death, I would find myself drinking so much that in my head, I thought, and I know a lot of guys, I'm putting into words for these guys, is that I felt that if I showed him how much I was in pain, it would mean that he would see how much I loved him and I missed him. And so I would drink to the point of like, fuck, man, like passed out trying to go for more. You know what I mean? And then I'd hear my buddy the same night get drunk and get arrested for DUI, and another buddy get same night get in a fight with the cops the same. And we were destroying our fucking selves in the memory of this guy to show them how much we loved him. And at one point I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, you start to think about like heaven, if there's a heaven, if they're looking down on us or if they're just watching, and like in our heads we're thinking like, yeah, I love you, watch me suffer. And then the other turn is like, there's no way he's saying, yeah, waste a fucking perfectly good life on drinking, dumbass.
Yeah.
Because if he had the chance, he'd be hugging his kid,
right,
his wife, you know. And so that was the first part of me like, I'm not drinking on the anniversary date no more. Like, let me just stop that day, because that day was the day that probably got out of hand the most. And then it turned into more, and I did counseling. I found myself, I was on the border one night wearing Same gloves I had in Iraq, because I just kept buying a newer version of them. Knuckled gloves, you know what I mean? Because we would go in Iraq and we kick in a door and you backhand a dude and fucking snatch him up and shit, you know what I mean? And so I kept wearing those gloves, and I kept my Merrills from Iraq too, and I wore those in the field. I had an M4, I had night vision, and I was chasing a dude one night, and the scent coming off his body, someone who's walking in the desert for 7-12 days, smells very similar to someone in Afghanistan. And so the smell was like, oh fuck.
Took you back.
Everything. Mm-hmm. My hands, everything was in the feeling in my hand, the smell, the vision of the green and the night vision, and then burnt trash. Some reason that night was like burnt trash, and it reminded me all of like fucking Afghanistan. As I'm chasing this dude, I'm thinking like, oh, I can shoot him. He's a squirter, right? Mm-hmm. ROE overseas. Squirter, you could shoot him in the back. No issue, because he's leaving an objective. Mm-hmm. On the border, it's just a dude trying to get away from a big, scary looking motherfucker chasing him.
Yeah.
And I about shot this dude in the back of the fucking head. And when my partner got in there, and boom, I popped everything off, and I was like, whoa, dude, what the fuck is going on? And I knew I've had several moments of this in different times. And I'm like, okay, well, this is the whole thing that people talk about. This is the post-traumatic stress. And eventually I saw a counselor, because kind of forced to, in a sense, where a buddy said, hey, this guy fucking needs to talk to you.
Yeah.
And she took me down the path of EMDR, which is the first step into the counseling direction I went. And so I have dreams.
What does that stand for?
EMDR. It's I don't know the exact name for it, but what it is recreating rapid eye movement with your eyes, and it helps process trauma back into memory. And so the trauma gets stored in our frontal cortex because of like all the hormone dumps, cortisol and everything else. And when that trauma doesn't get to process like a memory, like goes through your brain and kind of goes through the process of I guess acceptance of something, it gets stored up there. And so these post-traumatic stress moments, you keep reliving, and your body feels the same, the same feelings of the breathing of the moment of that's stored. You keep reoccurring, and that's like this fucking shitty thing. And so I was having this nightly almost. I'd come around a corner. This is a dream. I come around a corner, and this woman, older woman, was looking at me and almost looking for help. And I looked down, at her feet was her husband who was killed. And I was like, damn. And I couldn't help her. And I'd wake up feeling like fuck, felt guilty, felt terrible, felt really bad. And then the next night I had the same exact dream, same corner, seemed like a corner in like Afghanistan or something like that. And now she's looking at me like, how could you? And now in this scenario, I killed her husband. And so that same fucking scenario, I couldn't sleep for days. It was like, it was a weird haunting feeling and uncomfortableness of like, blah, I don't want to do that again, so I'm going to stay up. Or I got to drink so I can go to sleep. And when I did my EMDR session, I never had that dream again. Visually, I've never seen it. I've woke up feeling, but I've never seen it again in a dream.
From one session?
One session. We did 2 sessions, but yeah, one session. But it was really crazy because like she's talking to you and she's putting you through it, and she said, what's it smell like? And so she's really making you process that moment. And that was like, well, if that can do that, what else is there? And so slowly I've kind of gone down the path of learning more and going through different versions of wellness. I've done stem cell treatments. I've done TBI clinics. I've done different forms of counseling. I've done sweat lodge with Lakota Indians in LA with one of my fellow Mayan brothers on the show, actor. He put me through a whole sweat lodge ceremony. I do it probably, I've done it a few times with him.
Really? I bet that's intense.
Bro, that's so hot. You feel like your ear is going to melt off. And the only salvation you have is the mud on the floor from the sweat of everyone had. And dude, it's wild.
Wow.
So I've done all these different things, and it got me to a point of like, okay, I've done all this, but I haven't stopped drinking. And my wife is like, hey, well, we decided we're going to have kids together, and we're going through in vitro. And she goes, I need your body like healthy.
Yeah, right.
And so that means you can't drink. And at the time, I lost another Ranger buddy to suicide. And his story was weird to me. I was like, I just saw this motherfucker, and we're just hanging out, you know what I mean? And I started like kind of like, what the hell? And I find out more that he was drinking that night. I'm like, you know what? And I'm going to college again. I'm trying to get my degree. So I got my degree, but in the middle of getting my degree, I'm learning a lot of psychology and understanding like the brain, understanding drinking, and understanding like post-traumatic stress. And there was a study I read. It created suicide ideation from if you have TBI, post-traumatic stress and excessive drinking. It creates chemicals in your brain that create suicide ideation. So essentially every fucking ranger who's ever fucking done the job has all those.
Yeah.
And you're essentially a ticking time bomb for your own suicide because you're giving yourself the last, serum that you needed to kind of close up that gap. And so my friends are losing their lives to their own selves, and all of them been drinking. So when my wife said that, I said, you know what? It's probably a good time. So I stopped, and I haven't continued.
How long ago was that?
It's about almost 5 years now. It's
really?
4 years, 9 months. Yeah. Dude, and it's been, I was the type of guy that would say, I don't trust a man who doesn't drink. I was that guy, and I was like, why wouldn't you fucking drink? I don't get it. And then now I'm like, fuck, I was so like culturally, but not even that, like I was manipulated to really believe that was kind of the man I was. And my father didn't like that I went sober. The first time he was pissed. He was like, you can't drink a beer with me. It was offensive to him, to our culture, essentially.
Right. Yeah, it was like a bonding thing, even for your dad.
Exactly. For me and my father, it was what we did.
Yeah.
And for me to stop, it offended him in a sense. But now he's like on board. He's like, no, Vinny, don't ever go back. I'm like, oh. Because he sees like the growth that's happened from that. I'm like, fuck, if I could stop this, what else can I do? You know what I mean? Because that had a hold of me, bro.
Yeah.
And now I've realized, like, when I say it publicly, veterans are like, bro, that's me. I'm like, I know, dude, it's all of us. We're all the fucking same. But we didn't realize we're creating this monster that we're all trying to run from by drinking, adding to our own issues and not healing these fucking traumas that we've had from the military, from childhood. Yeah. And so I learned healing a lot of that stuff from my past, from the military, and then also not incorporating alcohol. I've learned to kind of really love myself and be like, man, there's a lot more I can do with this, and I started trying to help others do the same.
Well, I don't know how you were before, but right now you seem smart, funny, happy, like big personality. How were you different when you were drinking, do you think? I mean, if somebody from the outside in, if somebody would see you, would they see this exact same person I see?
I feel like it. I feel like I used to think I needed to be funny when I needed to drink to be funny, but I feel like there's no change. I don't know what I thought. I think.
Were you more moody when you drank?
No, man. I would get in fights if I needed to get in a fight. Just like I would get in a fight right now if I needed to get in a fight. You know what I mean?
Let's not get in a fight.
No, not you. But,
we're different weight classes.
Yeah, but you got way more cardio, bro. Trust me. Just run around for a little bit. You'll get me.
Okay.
But the point is, like, people used to think, like, are you an aggressive drunk? I'm like, no, dude, I only fought when I was drinking because I felt the need to fight, just like I would now. I was a very coherent person. The one thing I noticed, I forgot a lot of good memories. My daughter was like, Dad, do you remember teaching me how to ride a bike? I'm like, nope, not at all. I was drinking. I don't remember a lot of my kids' stuff, and that bothers me still to this day, that, like, they had a dad that would cope and kind of try and be comfortable with his existence by drinking. And so they didn't have a really good, coherent dad. They just had a shell of a dude in the room.
Right.
And that's unfortunate, because I think more now they're learning who I am and what makes me tick. And I think they're kind of like fascinated by me now. Like, oh, you're kind of cool.
I can't believe all the shit you do. I mean, it's incredible what you've, I don't know. It's just like you've excelled in so many different areas. Yeah. Did you used to drink every night when you drank?
I was a really good weekend binge drinker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd have a beer here and there, 2 beers, whatever.
Yeah.
Especially if you go somewhere like Texas Roadhouse, they had great beers, things like that.
It's hard to not have chips and salsa and beer or margaritas.
Right.
I don't drink either, but and it's mostly just because I'm a fuck up when I drink. And it's like drinking never helped me be good at anything I cared about.
Yeah.
So I don't, but when I did, man, chips and salsa and cold beer were pretty good.
Oh, I could not watch a fight without drinking. This is what I did. And what's funny is, like, I was the type of guy when I started, I didn't want it to end.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets like,
right.
Then you start mixing, like, oh, let me get, what bottles do I have in the cabinet now?
It was tough because, Vegas, how do you go to Vegas and not drink? So I'd go to SHOT Show. I'd do all that for years and just couldn't wait to get out of there because I just made a fool of myself. Now I haven't drank in Vegas in a long time.
Yeah. There's environments where I'm like, my mouth would water still sometimes when I see like a michelada. I love the micheladas, and my mouth would water, but I've learned to make those on my own now without alcohol. But yeah, there's moments I still have moments where I'm like, oh fuck. But
yeah,
I even think, like, I hate when I do this, but I always like, I think I can go back to it. And like, no, dude, don't do it, dude. Don't fucking do it.
You can get away with it maybe a couple times, but you know it's going to go back to same old shit.
Yeah.
At least I know.
I feel like it. I feel like one bad night and it's a bad memory, then all of a sudden,
yeah,
you just go down that hole.
Mm-hmm. Have veterans reached out for guidance from you because of your story?
Yeah, I have a men's group I manage. It's really like an accountability circle of dudes. We have a thing called Diffuse, and a lot of those guys, I pull them into the circle of that, and it's just kind of, what are your 5 goals for the year, and let's get them done, and kind of keeping it. And a lot of these guys see the drinking thing that I've done, and it kind of motivates them to try the same. Not everyone does too. Like some people are still where I was, where like they don't even want to hear it. Like, yeah, bro, no, I'm good. Everything's good. I can handle my drinking. You're like, okay, bro.
Yeah.
Some people can, some people can't. You know? I think it's like the same whole thing with mental health and wellness. Like everybody has their path to it, and everyone's kind of on their own phase of it. And some people are further than others in that. And
it's like faith.
Yeah. Right.
People are on their own journey, and they get to the end, whatever different points at different times.
Yeah, and so I'm always there. Like I posted that video the other day, and I had a ton of messages. I was like, "Well, join our group, and we'll just, find a different approach than using drinking." I have a guy that's addicted to coke, so it's not cocaine, cokes.
Oh,
soda
really?
Dog, yeah. And so we're like, okay, so we're all trying
a lot of sugar.
Right, that's what it is, and he struggles with his weight his whole life, and he says, he goes, I drink, but like soda. That's what I'm like. Fuck, bro. That's crazy. So we're trying to help him with that.
Yeah.
And I have like contacts in the addiction space a lot. We have beds if I need to send guys. So if there's anyone listening here like really needs a an inpatient clinic, like we have connections to all of that.
Yeah. That's useful, I'm sure. So how'd the acting thing come to happen? I mean, I don't know.
These dudes, bro. So
Black Rifle.
I was a part of that whole circle of friends, dude, and I just focused on acting. They went towards the Black Rifle Coffee. And so we produced a movie called Range 15, and when we did that, I was like, yeah. So I did theater in college 2 years because it was easy A's, right? Like you get a good grade, that's easy.
How many? Like 4 credits per class?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, well, I need to have good grades for baseball, so let me just take these classes. That was the first time I was like, that was kind of cool. And the teacher even said, he goes, hey, you're kind of a natural at this. You should think about it. I'm like, baseball, baseball. Then fast forward, I started doing YouTube videos with Matt and JT, and those are doing really well. And I kind of thought already, I was like, how do I even do the acting thing? I wonder if I would even do that. So we had a business, did really well. I resigned from I used to be one of the owners of Article 15 Clothing. That's before Black Rifle. And so then I resigned from the Border Patrol to pursue acting. We did Range 15. I produced another movie. It's kind of a poem I wrote that was like a emotional journey of a veteran kind of film. And then I did some Dads in Parks. There's another YouTube series that did really well. And I was in LA, and I knew Mayans was auditioning. I knew they're still looking. I texted a good buddy of mine and said, hey, I have a reel. I have my headshots. Kind of what you need as an actor, a reel and headshots.
Yeah.
I said, I have my things. I just don't know what to do with them. And he goes, I know the casting director. Let me send your picture. And she was like, he looks great. Because like I look the part of a Mayan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then she said, can he act? And sent my reel. And she goes, we'd love to see him tomorrow. So I'm supposed to go to this audition the next day. I've never done a real audition in my fucking life, right? So I'm like, what the fuck? He meets me and my wife for breakfast, and he's like, you've done harder shit in your fucking life. Go in there and own the motherfucking place and get out of there. I'm like, okay. So he said, shave my head, look the part. I said, cool. I shaved my head. I fucking look like a big, scary cholo-looking dude.
Yeah.
Did the part. They liked it. They asked me to come back.
What did you have to do that first day?
So the first
did you know the lines, or did they tell you the lines?
Yeah, so they send you the lines in the mail, the email the day before.
Okay.
And the goal for us actors is to be off book. I had like 2 auditions later today, too. How funny is that, thinking about it? But
today?
So, yeah, they sent me them. I got to get them done by Wednesday. But this is the life of acting. They just send you an audition. You got to get it done. But exactly, they sent the audition. It had about 5-6 lines. This character was more of a stern, angry character. And the scene was something about a funeral. And so I memorized it, which was tough, like scary and tough, but I figured that out. I audioed it. My wife audioed it. I listened to it overnight, woke up, studied it.
What was it? What was a line? Give me a line.
Oh, I don't even know. That was like 76 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But it was something to the fact of like talking about like we lost someone and like, are we going to get revenge kind of thing?
Okay.
You know, it's one of the kind of that vibe. And the lady, her name is Wendy O'Brien. She's the casting director, really well-known casting director. And it threw me off as they turned the camera on. It's just me and her, and she goes, "Hey, homeboy, how you feeling?" And I was like, "Oh shit, dude!" She was in character, bro.
Oh,
and I'm like, "Oh,
that's what the other character said."
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then I'm acting off her, and we're going back
Yeah.
and forth, and then it's done. She goes, "Oh, you did a great job." I was like, "Okay," and I hugged her, and I was like, "What the fuck was that?" We fly home. At the time, we're living in El Paso. That's the last place I lived when I was working for Border Patrol. And right away, I got an email. They want to see me back. So I bought a ticket right back. My dad took me this time. And now I have two characters, the serious character and the comedy character. And so we did the serious character again, same lines, no big deal, boom, boom. Then we did the comedy character. And he was talking about like something on like shitting on a gnome on the grass or something weird. But I remember I fucking added something to it accidentally, and you're not supposed to, but I was like kind of in the zone of it. Yeah, and I ad-libbed it. And I said something to it, and they laughed. I laughed. And I remembered, like, I kind of came to, I was like, oh shit, that was good. Everyone laughed. Right? And so I shook their hands and I left. And I got an email saying I got the job.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, so like, do those pay well? I have no idea what an actor makes.
You know, the first 3 years, we were putting ourselves in debt, just trying to uphold the dream.
Yeah.
Like
chasing
really
it.
chasing it. I think the first 3 years I made $60K, you know, but like in the Border Patrol at the time, I was making $120K.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the business at the time was probably at the time before it kind of all went down, was probably making $100K. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
I had better jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we had,
But you got your SAG card. And,
right.
Right.
So I'm in the middle of like, I'm in the best show at the time, one of the biggest followings because it's following Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
And it's like one of the most
Blockbuster.
well-known Latino TV shows on TV. So I was in like the best
Yeah.
spot I could possibly be. So I was like, I'm going to sit here for a minute and see what happens.
Right.
And so when I was done filming, I'd go ahead and get a job. You know, one time I was picking up urine at addiction clinics. Yeah. I was working another job. I was doing some security stuff for a contracting company.
Yeah.
Like I was just doing these hodgepodge jobs when the season ended just to kind of keep the lights on. And then when the season came back, boom, we did it again. And so about season 3, I was like, we might need to change our career path because we're fucking, I'm going off credit cards here now.
Yeah,
And maxing these
struggling
fuckers
actor.
out. Yeah, exactly. At one point, I had 2 jobs: picking up piss and doing something. You know, like I'm doing all kinds of weird shit. And then I even told the Elgin, who was Jocko's brother, I said, "Look, man, either I'd love to get an opportunity to show you I can really do this. You know, I just really want a chance." And he goes, "Yeah, man, we're gonna give you a chance. I'm gonna trust you. I'm gonna give you a chance." I'm like, "Oh, thank God." And so going into the next season, we were able to negotiate a better contract, and I was like, "Oh." Okay. And then boom, I got to do a lot of acting, like not just like one line, like, "Hey, here comes the cops," you know, like legit fucking acting, story arc, you know what I mean? All that. And I was like, "Oh fuck, this is dope, dude."
That's awesome.
Started getting a lot of good feedback at one point internally. So it's kind of levels to it, but I was put in for an Emmy, but it's like the lowest level of that. It never really got to the Emmys, but just the notoriety of that through internally felt good.
Just the mention.
Yeah, the mention internally was just like, oh fuck yeah, that feels good to know.
That's big.
Yeah, and so I was doing good work. We were getting paid pretty good. We're pulling ourselves out of that fucking hole, and then they killed the show. Oh, motherfucker!
So now what? Any more? Well, you said you got two auditions.
You know, you get auditions all the time.
Yeah.
I've landed 2. I've made, you know, it's an impossible job. It's a really, really hard job. I became a writer on the show the last season. And so I still have a couple writing things happening. We're producing a movie here soon. One of my scripts from back in the day is getting picked up. We're trying to pitch other shows as a writer. So the writing side is getting a little bit of attention. There's a possibility of getting more work there. Acting, it's a really big hustle. It's a hard place. So,
I imagine.
You take all the auditions and you might land one, you know? And so it's kind of the name of the game.
Well, I don't know if you're making any money podcasting, but you could. You're great. you are great at it. I mean,
well, we do have one. I'll mention it now. You know, I don't know if they're gonna get mad at me, but we have Ironclad. We have a podcast coming out called Borderlands, and we're gonna be really discussing in detail some of the perspectives of the border, the left, the right perspective, everything, immigration lawyers. We have a lot of different people's versions of their truth of the border, and we want to allow them to say their piece. And it's going to be interesting, and I think it's important to have some kind of dialogue like that at a time right now that's it's divisive, and it shouldn't be as much as it is.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think it'll be super interesting. But I just know that with your personality and your presence, I mean, you can have sponsors and guests and you're good at this.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely blow up as a podcaster. And
I would love to.
I don't know if we can make money like Rogan, but I mean, some people are making pretty good money.
There's some good ones out there. I think Sean Ryan's doing really well.
Yeah, he is.
He's a good dude. Joe Rogan. I've been listening to Joe Rogan since back in the day, so it's really cool to watch the growth of him. And that's an impossible chase. The dude's the best at what he does, and he's so intelligent. And so it's just fun to watch what he's done with it and how the podcast space has grown. You know, I have my little podcast, but you really have to commit to this thing pretty seriously to like make it grow to what he did, and it's hard to do that. But you know, we're all trying. I think. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you have interesting people or you have something that, you know, a perspective people enjoy listening to, man, those downloads, that's all it amounts to. It's like you say, hey, you want to sponsor the show? Okay, pay this much per download. Then it's up to you.
Yep.
If people listen, you're making great money.
Yeah.
If nobody listens, well, you're picking up urine. I mean, you know, I'll be back at my, you know, I worked over here at the local utility till last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll be back there if this doesn't work.
You
but
know, I always have, I always have a job waiting for me somewhere, I'm sure.
We can always figure out something to hustle, right? How did Borderline do?
It did good. You know, I would think everyone who writes a book wants to get that New York Times bestselling book list. You know, it kind of solidifies you to write another few books.
It's political though.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
That's not like a bestseller.
Right.
They call it a bestseller.
It's sold well. It did what it was intended to do. The goal was to have a book out there that explained the Border Patrol career field in a way that's just kind of like non-biased as much as possible, non-political, just like, let me tell you how the career is and how beautiful it is to do that job, because it is the first line of defense against any terrorist acts, and it is also the first line of potential to save lives. And so it's a really, really respectable, beautiful career field that doesn't get the respect it deserves. And, you know, I've had plenty of Border Patrol agents tell me thank you, and I'm happy. If it sells one more book and another guy says he loved, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, I don't really chase too much. I try not to be a guy that chases these accolades too much.
Yeah.
I wrote it. I'm happy with it.
We like to win though. Right. And so it's not.
I'm doing your podcast, bro. That's a win for me, dog. You know what I mean? I've been a guy that's observing from the back of you and your career for a long time. So it's been really cool. So when I got the call, I was like, fuck. I told my wife, like, I'm kind of pumped about this.
Oh, no, I'm pumped because not only, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Border Patrol agents. I remember a couple guys gave me a coin, a challenge coin. And but I'm a patriot. I love military cops, I love all those guys that don't get the credit they deserve.
Yeah.
I feel like those are the guys that I want to fight for, or represent, or help tell their story. So having you on here and, knowing your book and knowing you, and also the invitation to go to the border, I would love it.
It's gonna be great.
Because that story, it's so critical right now. Yeah. And it is, you're right. It's the first line of defense, but also it's just, it's the border of our country.
Yeah.
We love America, right? So, I want to see just the challenges that are involved down there and the men and women who are working there.
Yeah, and I think everyone's fair to have their opinion on it, but we have to be more educated on it. I think that a lot of people weren't educated enough on it, and that's why we're so divided on this subject. Mm-hmm. And so we have to do our part to educate people on exactly how it works, so that I think we can have better discourse. Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly right. I do want to mention too, I watched another interview you did with John Bernthal.
Yeah.
Oh man. We've been talking, I've been trying to take him on his first hunt, right? He has a son he wanted to bring up, take on a hunt. But anyway, I saw you guys walking around, it was LA, right?
Yeah, dude, he's the man, bro.
Oh, Love that guy.
Do
I've
you?
never met him.
Have you talked to him? You've talked to him?
I've texted him.
Okay, cool.
I think we talked on the phone, but I've never met him.
Well, why don't we plan a border trip together, all of us?
Oh, that'd be sweet.
That's my boy, dude.
You guys are pretty tight?
Yeah, dude.
I just, I knew him from movies, whatever, Fury and all those movies. But then when he had Shia on and that interview was insane.
Incredible.
And so then I was like, God dang, this guy's freaking good.
He's great, dude. He's real.
Yes.
He's real.
And you can tell. But you're real.
Yeah.
So you're no different. But
that's John Bernthal, dude. No,
Yeah.
he's one of the great ones, and his acting is it's so good. As an actor, when you watch someone who is better than you, and a competitor, I'm a competitor, fucking sucks, because I'm like, I need a chance. I need something to show I can do just as good, right? Like I want to compete with him because I respect him that much, but watching him do his job is like, he's good, dude.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, I want the chance to compete with that.
why do you think he's so good? I mean,
when people are very connected to the human condition, when they're very connected to knowing the big spectrums of emotions, and they know how to convey those, it's the best. He's lived life. Not all actors have lived life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That dude is like, he's done the dirt.
Been around.
He's been around.
He's been around.
And when I think you're going to see a big influx of people who are very human in the sense of they've experienced life, because then coming into acting is like now learning how to harness that. And I think he's really good at harnessing that. He's really good at it. And he owns his characters, and he creates these worlds that like you just believe every character, even though it's still him. He has his nuances, right? He does his thing, but every time he does it, it's like, fuck yeah, dude. Have you watched the show The Bear on FX?
no.
Oh my God, dude. He's like a couple pieces in, it's the best.
Really?
The show's great. The show is great. But even his little pieces when he's in there, I'm like, God, man, I don't know how he does it, but he steals the show every time he's on scene, dude.
To me, and I don't know if I'm biased because I'm just some redneck dumb fuck from small town Oregon, but I like the real gritty life has kicked you in the nuts type actors that have come up over the professionally trained. I
get it. I can't say too much on that because I work in the space of all those dudes. I think they're all very good, but for some reason I'm drawn to those characters too. I'm drawn to those guys too.
Yeah.
There's some beautiful actors. The guy that used to be a Marine, he got hurt and he went into acting. He went to Juilliard. He's a well-trained actor. He's brilliant. But he's great. But John Bernthal is rugged great, dude. Like he's, for some reason, I just love it. Yeah, I know. I'm drawn to those guys too.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, yeah, I mean, that would be a pretty epic border trip. I mean, I'm down there. I'm going to me and Rogan and Steve Vernella are going hunting on the 8th of February.
What? Really?
Yeah. So I'll be down in Texas.
Okay, let me see what's up.
But yeah, just whenever, but let me know.
Yeah.
I'll be there for a few days then.
Anytime you're down there, let me know, because like I said, I'm just north of that, and I could just drive down and try and connect you guys down there if you wanted to. Anything, we can make it work.
Yeah.
We can make it work.
Yeah. Well, I'll be there, and yeah, I don't know what Joe's schedule is, but I'll mention it.
Yeah, I've never hunted either, bro.
We're pig hunting. So
that's fun out there. So
Yeah.
we've done that accidentally. Just when you're in the field, you hunt them down accidentally, anyways.
Yeah. Have you ever eaten any?
No.
Wild boar are good.
Is it?
Oh man, so good.
Really? I haven't eaten. Look, man, I grew up in LA. I don't know the hunting space very
understand.
well. I've had friends bring me like an elk, and I eat some of the elk meat.
Yeah.
And bring me deer, but I don't know the world of it. One of my buddies gutted a deer in front of me. I was like, damn, that shit's intense.
Yeah, you've been to war, but that's a whole different thing, right?
Yeah, it's a whole different.
Yeah, the killing the animal, and I'm not trying to compare the two or whatever, but yeah, killing it can be intense. Like you're splitting open that hide, pulling out those guts.
Yeah,
it's real.
I would love for my sons to know what that's like, but as well as show them the respect that the animal deserves after as well.
Yes.
Like, eat everything you possibly can.
Yep.
Praise this bad boy because he's feeding the family.
That's right.
Show all the love and gratitude to that. You know what I mean? Like that's that's kind of like the circle of life I want them to experience and know. Yeah. Sounds dope.
Yeah. Well, we're going to make something happen. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I just wanted to tell you, it's like, I mean, I have so much respect for you, and it means a lot that you came to the show, you came to my home here, you're in the studio. It's like, and I feel enriched by the experience.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite, and seriously, I've been following you for a long time, so this is kind of surreal for me as well.
Well, thanks for the talk. I learned a lot. I appreciate you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Every step I take, I move my truth. Every time they tell me stop, I use every comment, hate that makes my fuel. Gather up my energy and boom. I hear them talking, saying the way that I move is so reckless. That is a part of my mind I've been blessed with. Giving my blood, so I am relentless. My fault, they want someone to blame. They sent their hate, it fuels my pace. I am Roy Tough, I am the change, the few endure. Feeling like Cam Hanks.